ex-husband in acid. Like, okay. And looking at her picture, she looks evil. She literally looks evil. She looks so mad and just like she's just emanating. Just, do you know what I mean? Like, you could just tell those kind of people, they just emanate. Like, I have a resting bitch face, but like she, a whole new level down into this case. Okay, so when 45-year-old Timothy Schuster went missing on the 10th of July 2003, everyone immediately started to panic, as Tim had recently lost his job and was going through a messy divorce with his wife Larissa Schuster. Police thought that maybe he had done harm to himself, which immediately when someone goes missing, especially when they're going through stuff, that thought obviously springs to the forefront of people's minds, obviously, because they're at a very vulnerable time, and they need all the support around them. And obviously, I've never been through, well, I have been through like friend breakups and like, yeah, but I've never been through an actual like partner breakup or married. So, but yeah, obviously that is gonna be a really difficult thing to get through. Like, you know, you've like married this person, you thought you was gonna spend the rest of their life with them, so to like divorce them, it is like a final sort of solution. Obviously they want to find him just like for wellness, because he just doesn't look good. As the search for Tim continued, the hopes of finding him alive quickly disappeared when his wallet, car keys and phone were abandoned in his home, which you just don't leave them sort of things. You know, to like leave things, your valuables, especially like your wallet and your phone. Like, I get he's in the older generation. No, I'm not saying 45 is old, by the way, I'm just saying they're not in the new technology generation, but still, people don't leave the house without a phone, something that they can contact people on. Like, people have their phone glued to them usually, but even if they don't, like, they usually take them out with them, and their wallet, and also leaving his car keys suggests that obviously he's not taking his car either, so he's gone out on foot, which is quite a scary, sorry for that dog barking in the background, which is quite a scary thought, because like I say, he's vulnerable, and the fact he's going out with all this stuff makes it seem even more like this is the S word. This makes it seem like he has done something to himself. Everybody's worst fears were confirmed when, devastatingly, 5 days later, Tim's goes, she should know about fucking chemicals. While studying, she worked as an aide at a hospital in Colombia, where she met a nurse called Timothy Schuster. Larissa and Tim quickly got together and married that same year in 1982. They had a daughter called Kristen in 1985, and 4 years later, in 1989, they moved west to Fresno, California. Here, Larissa took a job as a biochemist at an agricultural research lab, and Tim took a job as a manager in the cardiology department at Fresno St. Agnes Medical Center. A year later, in 1990, the couple welcomed their son, Tyler. After that, they are both very intelligent. They both know, they've both been working in the hospital. They know like how to care, how to do things, like in the hospital world. And also doing biochemistry in a proper lab. Like, she's so clearly like both quite clever. By 1997, Larissa noticed that the lab she was working at was starting to go downhill, so she decided to take matters into her own hands, and she opened her own laboratory called Central California Research Labs, which good on her, because sometimes when things go down it's like really disappointing, and a lot of the time people sometimes give up or they try and find other places, but it's quite hard, especially when you've been working somewhere for so long, to get integrated into another working environment and work with other people. So the fact that she was like, I'm gonna be my own boss, SB, I'm gonna start my own laboratory. Because of the family's success, they were able to move to a larger home in Clovis, California in 2000, and by 2001 she was earning twice Tim's annual salary, so she was definitely the breadwinner. As Larissa kept very busy with a new lab, Tim's role at home became increasingly present, and he quickly became the person who was in charge of running the household, because obviously she was so quite busy. Larissa's standards, however, were incredibly high, and Tim struggled to meet them, and no matter what he did, it was never good enough. It's decided to ship their daughter to Missouri so that she could stay with Larissa's parents, and this caused a lot of tension between the couple, which is weird because it's like, at the end of the day, we all know what teenagers can be like, and a lot of the time they do try to test your boundaries as a parent when they go through the adolescent stages in life. They try to get away with whatever they can get away with. But obviously, he was still her dad, and the fact that she just like decided to ship a bloody daughter off like she was a package to her parents, as if to say Tim can't look after her properly, which is it's an insult really. And not gonna lie, that's not gonna correct her behaviour. Like, because moving a child, especially when they're going through stuff like that, like going through puberty, moving them out of the home is gonna cause more issues, because it's kind of like abandonment, even though she's still in the family. It's like, do you know what I mean? To them, they might see it as an abandonment thing, and it's just gonna cause more problems. Over the next few months, Tim and Larissa started drifting more and more, and they soon stopped talking. Soon Larissa had enough and she wanted Tim out. In February 2002, Larissa filed for divorce and told Tim to leave. This time, however, Tim refused, and he had hired a lawyer to help him fight custody over their son Tyler and the splitting of their joint assets. By July 2002, however, Larissa was awarded primary custody over Tyler and was allowed to stay in the couple's home. So Tim moved out of the house on the 4th of July 2002, which so not only has he not had access now to his older daughter, he's now not having access to his other kid Tyler, and she's got all the access, so it's like, do you know what I mean? And he's gone from being a stay-at-home dad and fully being hands-on with them to then having one taken away, being kicked out of the house, and also all of the assets being removed. Like, I can imagine, I can't even imagine how horrible and just frustrating it would be, and upsetting to lose, being able to see your own kids. While Larissa returned from her trip, she found her home half empty, and she was furious. By August 2002, Larissa was struggling to look after her son, Tyler, as she had been so used to Tim being the one to look after him. So she sought the help of her lab technician assistant, 21-year-old James Fagan, which is weird because you wanted custody of your kids, but you're not willing to look after them. And now you're missing your husband looking after them, and it's like, are you joking? This poor man has been stripped away of access to his kids, and now you're like, oh my god, I miss all looking after him. Oh, I know. She could have, asked Tim to look after his own son if she missed him looking after him, not get press charges because he just wanted to move on with his life, but he still continued to fight the divorce, and he contested every detail of the divorce proceedings. Sadly for Tim, however, things were not going well. The hospital where he had worked was planning to lay off some staff, and Tim's name was on that list that they were going to let go. And so Tim and his good friend Mary Solis lost their jobs on the 9th of July. All this happened, his place has been trashed, he's lost custody of his kids, you know, he's having a messy divorce, and now he's lost his job, so his income, so now he's going to be even more struggling. And when I heard that, when Larissa found out that Tim had lost his job, she laughed. She laughed. Like, that is just disgusting. Like, her husband was fully supporting her when she was doing well with her life and her job, and the fact that, like, oh, it's just this attitude that she's got, this chip on her shoulder is disgusting, and someone needs to back her down, back her down to do, block her door, or whatever it's called, they're saying. The following day, on the 10th of July, Tim did not turn up for breakfast with Mary Solis. Mary was naturally worried and tried to ring him but couldn't get through to him, so she called their mutual friend Vic and asked Vic to go around to Tim's house and to see if he was okay. Vicky immediately went over and checked over Tim's house, but Tim was nowhere to be found, and his pickup was still in the garage. Vic then became increasingly concerned when she saw Tim's cell phone sitting on the dresser. Later that day, Tim was supposed to retrieve his son from Larissa but never turned up. Later that afternoon, they called the police and reported Tim missing. And obviously it's going to be concerning because, like I say, he's had all these things happening to him, and his mental health is going to be really, really bad at this current time. And the fact that he's just gone without his phone, his car, you know, all of his belongings, is just very concerning. And also not met up with his friends, also not even collected his son, which he loves his kids, he adores them. And it's just so out of character for him not to be there. With Tim officially being classed as a missing person, the police jumped straight into asking questions to those closest to Tim. Detectives quickly found out how the volatile divorce that was pending, so naturally they asked Larissa to come down to the police station that Friday evening. During that interview, Larissa shared that she and Tim had a difficult time communicating verbally, and they sometimes went for 3 weeks without talking. Larissa stated that the last message she got from Tim was on Tuesday the 8th, and it said he was planning to pick up Tyler at 6 p.m. on Thursday the 10th, so that was 2 days prior. She also said that she had called him again around 8:30 p.m. and left a message asking him to call on the evening of the 9th of July once she learned that he was losing his job, saying that she'd been concerned for him. Sure, she's really concerned for her husband losing a job, that she called him, when we all know that's bullshit, because, like, she literally laughed when she heard the news. check if Tim was indeed in her list of speed dials, Larissa pushed back. Frustrated, the interrogators took a break and went outside, where they saw Larissa's car. And inside the vehicle, they clearly saw her phone sitting inside, so they asked her to take it out. Larissa's demeanour access to a storage unit. As it turned out, almost a year previously, on the 8th of August 2002, Larissa had asked Leslie to rent her a storage unit at a security public storage, which was a couple of miles from the lab. Larissa had told Leslie that she wanted to store some more things that she was to keep hidden from Tim, so she also asked that Leslie rent it in her own name. Immediately the police knew this was vital information and looked further into this lead. As soon as the officers arrived at the storage unit, they were hit with the overwhelming smell of decaying flesh. Inside the unit, they found a blue 55-gallon barrel, and they immediately knew this was where the smell was coming from. Inside the barrel, they found the partial remains of Tim Schuster floating in liquid, and this liquid was identified as a mix of hydrochloric acid and the liquefied remains of Tim Schuster. While the remaining parts of Tim's body, an autopsy was conducted, and here they were found the presence of another chemical, chloroform, which maybe she used that to knock him out. We don't know, I don't know. They also could not determine whether Tim was alive when he was placed inside the barrel, which is even worse, because it's like, if he was alive, I can't. If he was alive in acid, his skin, everything would be literally melting, and he would be, I can't. He would be unimaginable, like undescribable, unfathomable pain. I can't even imagine. I don't want to imagine, like, oh, I just hope he wasn't alive for his sake, because no, that is just horrendous. The following day, on the 15th of July, police travelled to Missouri, where they knew Larissa would be heading as the next part of her vacation. That same afternoon, they also re-brought James Fagon in for questioning, and this time James revealed much more. James Fagon told them that he and Larissa Schuster were responsible for the disappearance and murder of Tim Schuster. James admitted that on the night of the 9th of July 2002, James forgot and charged him with first-degree murder. The following day, on the 16th of July, police waited at the St. Louis airport in Missouri, and the moment Larissa stepped off the plane, they arrested her and transported her back to California, where she was also charged with first-degree murder. But would anyone else have loved to see her face when she stepped off that plane and got arrested? Because I would have loved to see the downfall of this evil woman. Despite her arrest, Larissa refused to talk, and she immediately got herself an attorney. Investigators had to find more evidence to go alongside James's confession. James told attorneys that he had ditched the stun gun in a porta potty outside of town, which they managed to find. They also found an empty glass bottle in James's bedroom, which he confirmed contained the chloroform they had used. At Larissa's lab, they gathered files and computers and searched the premises. Here they found 6 empty acid bottles in a dumpster outside. 6. Forensic analysis of Larissa's office computer showed that on the 30th of June, internet searches were conducted for the terms acid digestion tissues, acid digestion animal tissues, and sulfuric acid. They also found receipts for 3 cases of hydrochloric acid and 1 case of sulfuric acid. Each case contained 6 2.5 litre bottles. Larissa had also ordered an acid resistance 55-gallon barrel back on the 30th of April, and this was sent to CCRL, which was bizarre as this was not the type of barrel the lab normally used. So she was obviously premeditating this for farms. Also in Larissa's possession was a card with the storage facility entry instructions and a code number. A couple of times Larissa told an employee that if she could kill Tim and get away with it, she would. Who says that? Larissa had also told her friend Terry Lopez that she prayed every night that Tim would die. She asked her colleague Leslie if her boyfriend knew anyone who could rough someone up. She also told a fellow member of the church choir that she would do everything in her power to keep Tim from getting the business. Using James and Larissa's phone records, as well as the storage company logs, they managed to retrace her steps over the past 5 days, and the trial matched James' confession completely. James Forgotten had been charged with first-degree murder and kidnapping. It was assumed that the plea agreement could be made with James so he could testify in Larissa's trial, but he refused to make a deal. So they proceeded with their prosecution and he went to trial in November 2006 for Larissa's scheduled court date. His defense was that Larissa Schuster was a mastermind of Tim Schuster's murder, and he was only acted as an accessory to murder after the fact under duress, maintaining that Larissa had threatened his life. It was also revealed that James accepted $2,000 from Larissa in exchange for helping with the slaying. Defense testimony came from James's friends, co-workers, and Larissa's friend she had unsuccessfully tried to recant. I get that Larissa was a controlling, manipulative woman, but at the same time, he didn't have to accept $2,000 in cash from her, did he? No. And he clearly wanted the money. He clearly just accepted it, and he clearly just went along with it. And it's like, I get she might have threatened his life, but still, it's accepting the cash for me that's just a bit unbelievable. And also, like I say, he went ages without saying anything, and you know, he's now confessed it. Jurors were shown the video of James's police interrogation, where he was shown saying, "I held the barrel for her, put him in, poured all of the solution, and she couldn't stand it. So she said, put it on, the lid on. So I helped her put the lid on, and she put it in the shed. She probably couldn't stand it, because she fucking knows it's disgusting. She couldn't stand to look at it working, but she goes and does it, and this fucking oh god." Though James Vaughan was acquitted of kidnapping, he was found guilty of first-degree murder, and despite jurors' pleas for leniency, he was sentenced to life without parole. Larissa Schuster's murder trial began on the 22nd of October 2007, more than 4 years after she was charged. Her trial had to be moved from Clovis, California to LA due to the pre-trial publicity, as she had been dubbed the Acid Lady by various media outlets in fresh note. Not only did she have the benefit of the trial moving, but James Vaughan was not on the prosecution witness list, as he had not accepted a plea agreement in return for testifying against her. So he wouldn't testify against her, which is a bit like, why not? Because this is what I mean, why I believe he is guilty, because why is he not testifying against her? Since the prosecution could not use James's testimony, the judge ruled that James's interrogation footage could not be shown either. Therefore, the case relied entirely on circumstantial evidence, but they failed to hide. Prosecutors stated how Larissa had purchased an unnatural and unnecessary amount of chemical stock. They also played graphic phone messages from Larissa that Tim had saved on his answering machine. Prosecutors alleged to the jury that Larissa had attempted to solicit Tim's murder before, believing that she could get away with it. Tammy also testified and told everyone about Larissa's trip Schuster made a powerful victim impact statement. Tim's mother recalled what his final moments must have been like. I can't even imagine his last hours and the pain he must have gone through. How I wish I could have been there to help him with his pain. Finally, Larissa Schuster was sentenced to life in prison without parole, and she was ordered to pay for Tim's burial expenses. For a period, she was housed at Valley State Prison for Women in Chowchilla, California. However, as of 2022, she is incarcerated in Central California Women's Facility. James Furcon is serving his sentence at the Calipatria State Prison in Calipatria, California. Larissa Schuster is currently fighting hard to be released. Really? And in a letter she sent from prison, she said the following: "Prison is a temporary place for me. I've had to learn to make the best out of every day. I've learned so much about myself in here that I'm thankful in a way that I've had the opportunity to explore myself in ways I would never have been able to. At least now I understand more about what happened to me to make the horrible decisions I made." This woman is deluded. Even now, she believes that she doesn't deserve to be in prison. She literally believes that all of this was James